It was horrifying news that moved the town. Robinson School principal Kevin LaCoste had sustained a severe spinal cord injury on July 21st after falling from a tree in Westford while with his family. The accident left him with no movement from his shoulders down, requiring an unknown amount of physical and occupational therapy, as well as have him return to a home that was not wheelchair accessible. The community jumped into action, organizing fundraisers to help defray the mounting costs. Westford resident Nancy Cook, with prompting from her 9-year-old grandson Jake, a former student at the Robinson School, spearheaded a fundraising campaign to renovate the split-level LaCoste family home into one that had a single wheelchair-accessible level. Things snowballed from there, with members of the community donating time, supplies, materials, expertise, funds, and more to completely transform the home into not just an accessible space, but one that took into account many of the family's new needs that they couldn't fathom. Now back in their newly renovated home after almost 3 months of hospitalization and therapy, Kevin and his wife Allie spoke with me on October 22nd. Kevin reflects on the day of the accident, talks of his prognosis and recovery, reveals what living with a severe spinal cord injury entails, and messages those in the community who came together during this trying time. But first, I asked Kevin how he was doing.
Doing pretty well, I think, given my new diagnosis and where we're at right now as a family. I think it's going to be a long road for us, getting, I think, more comfortable with, the changes in our lifestyles and whatnot. But overall, we're doing pretty well. I think, there are so many things that have made it a little bit easier on us, and that is certainly the community's support, not just around the complete construction and revamping of our house, but just even simple things like, food sign-ups to help with dinners for us, or family and friends who just really want to help in any way that they can. So that certainly helped the transition.
How are you doing with the home and getting around? And can you talk a little bit about the changes that you've had to make?
Yeah. So originally when we started out talking about how I can have a home that's accessible to us, that was really the focus for us, was how can I make sure I can get in and out of my house and into my bedroom and bathroom. And so that's where we started with this whole project. And then before you knew it, it turned into not just making sure that it was accessible, but making sure that it was a home that we could entertain, that I could really truly enjoy with my family. And even though we've only been home a week, I feel like that was accomplished. And I can't thank Nancy Cook and Jamie Holmes and Joe and just so many others that I can't even name for their hard work and whatnot.
I came here, I guess about a month ago, and Nancy Cook walked me through the house and sort of showed me everything that, I was trying to envision it in my head, and it really is more spectacular than I thought that it could be in such a short amount of time. They pulled this together. I was here a week before you came home, and I said, nope, there is no way that they're going to get this done in time, and it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, the responsibility of the nurses and the doctors at Spalding Rehabilitation is to make sure that we're going home and that we will be able to successfully access the home and whatnot. And they kept asking, how's construction going?
Yeah.
And we were really worried as well. 21 days, I think, or 26 days is what it took to get a huge project done that in most cases would take 3 months to do. So, that in itself is spectacular. What I understand is that, when people came together, they really truly worked together, for the mission of getting it done for our family. Complete strangers, people we don't know, were looking to help out in any way. And so, with all that help, miraculously got it done in the time.
Your friend, an old school friend, Lumpy from Athol, was here feeding the crew. He said he has no construction, talent whatsoever, so he was giving what he could, and it was feeding the crew here one afternoon. It was a pretty cool day. Yeah.
There are a number of people from Athol, from where I grew up, that have contributed in a number of ways. Lumpy being one of them. He's a great guy, and certainly wanted to do something. So it was nice to see the crew here from Athol.
So can we talk, if you don't mind, about the accident and like what happened that day? And I think people are curious.
Sure. So it was a nice July day. We, for those that don't know, just moved in January. So we have been excited to live in a neighborhood where we can just walk as a family and just be active. And so after dinner one evening, we said, all right, let's go for the walk. And I decided to try to be a silly dad, and I said, I'm going to hide up in the tree and just see if the kids even notice. I was not very high up on the tree. They came out, they saw me immediately, but I reached up for the next limb, which was just a little bit higher than I could reach, and as I pulled myself up, I slipped and fell down and landed on another limb, which I believe was the cause of my injury, and then fell to the ground. There are a number of things that my wife and I have talked about. We don't believe that me falling was for a reason, that it happened for a reason, but we do feel strongly that there are a number of things that happened that day that make it a miracle that I'm going to be here and alive. My wife immediately directed the kids to, to get the phone and to call 911, and in the meantime started to resuscitate me. When the kids came back, she directed them to go to a neighbor's house. She didn't tell them which neighbor's house. We didn't even know our neighbors.
Right.
But they happened to run next door to a neighbor named Wayne, who was an Army medic. He came over and assisted Allie in providing, CPR. What we're still so amazed by is the quick response of so many first responders here in town. The fire department, the paramedics, the ambulance, police, all were here in such a short amount of time.
That's great.
That too contributed to me still being alive and being here. So I think we're looking at that each day as a complete miracle.
How are the kids?
The kids have been incredibly resilient. We've talked about things quite a bit as a family, and of course shed a lot of tears over that.
Sure.
My first trip when I got home was not to come inside. It was to visit the tree and try to make peace with that. But the kids are so amazing. We wouldn't be able to have kept things as normal for them without my in-laws and my parents, my sister and brother-in-law, who just, while Allie was at the hospital with me each day, just keeping them in a normal schedule and letting them have, the type of summer that they normally might do. And they have been so incredibly helpful, just even with my injury, My daughter is eager to help feed me without even being asked, or to get me a drink, or to make sure that I'm okay. My son helps me, getting into my harness to lift me up and bring me to places that I need to go. So kids have been really great and resilient. But it's a long road,
Let's talk about that. Your prognosis. What are doctors saying?
Yeah, for good and for bad, the doctors won't tell us too much. And the reason for that is because my injury is considered incomplete. And so what that entails is the fact that there could be signals that could then reach my other parts of my body to help me be able to have functions in my hands or perhaps my legs. So that's both good and bad, right?
Right.
We have hope that with a lot of hard work and the support of OTs and PTs and whatnot, that will begin to get more function in my body. But it's, they don't say if you work hard for 6 months, you'll be able to move your hands. If that were the case, I'd be moving my hands in 6 months. So that's sort of a hard thing for us, but at the same point, I still think it gives us a little bit of hope. A while after the accident, while I was still in Spalding, that it did dawn on me. A lot of people have been so supportive with their words and saying things like, you're strong, your determination and perseverance will help you in this process. And while to some level that is true, it's not like other things that I've accomplished in my life. Lots of goals where I have worked really hard and accomplished the goal or goals. That's not the case here. If it were about working hard and showing perseverance, I would be a lot further along than I am right now, even though we just reached the 3-month mark of the accident. So I think I really had a hard time coping with that in the hospital, but we'll of course continue to work hard and hopefully see some results at some point.
What is it that you think people who have not been through something like this, someone that they know with a spinal cord injury or a tragic accident like this, what is it that you want people to know that people don't know, perhaps?
Yeah, it's a really great question. For me, it's the realization throughout an entire day that I really can't do much at all. So I'm someone that really likes to keep busy and really help out around the house, and I loved to cook. And that was that was pretty much my favorite thing to do outside of some of the other activities, just to be able to help with the family and whatnot. And I think that's been the hardest thing for me, transitioning home, is watching everybody do things for me, and I can't help out right now. So I think that would be something I want folks to know, is that that's a challenge, for me. I think that, Allie right now has been my rock, and she also has to schedule all appointments and get our life in order. And while having this amazing home and having the amazing support that we've had from the community, it's a full-time job right now for her to be able to pull all of this together and get the care that I need. We are approved for something like 102 hours for support, which is amazing, except there aren't many people out there available to provide that support. So that's been a real struggle. Right now, Allie is my primary caregiver, and I don't want that. I want her to be my wife, not the one taking care of me most of the time. I obviously feel like our relationship has gotten a whole lot stronger in these 3 months, but I want to maintain the husband-wife relationship versus primary caregiver.
So is Allie not working now and here taking care of you? And
that's right. We're fortunate that Allie is able to stay home right now, and that she is on a leave of absence, and that's helpful for us, no doubt. So she can provide that support, but that's been an emotional road.
I bet.
For both of us. It's not easy work.
Right.
And when it's your significant other, it makes it a little bit more emotional. When you have a primary caregiver that can come in and provide support that's not your family, it's a little bit easier. And we have had someone available to do that recently, but we need more help in that way, and the struggle is just finding that support. We can only pay a certain amount of money through Mass Health, and there's not a lot of people who want to do this kind of work, you know, and though are fortunate that there's been so much fundraising, that well dries out pretty quickly if we try to supplement and add to hourly wages for people to come in, you know. So we're trying to find that balance, and that's been hard. What has been comforting is I have taken a few trips out into the community already, and we just want to be a normal family out in the community, and we feel comforted when people smile or say hello, whether we know them or not. You know, it's overwhelming to see so many LaCoste strong shirts out there. The drive in, you know, home the day that we were coming from the hospital with lots of signs was overwhelming. So I think, you know, to answer your question, it's just we want to be the normal family. We are okay and comfortable with people saying hi. Going out to restaurants may not be as easy. We went out for lunch the other day, and while it was a really excellent experience, you know, the tables aren't at a position that it made it easy for me to get into, and that I felt badly taking up so much space or taking away perhaps seats from other people. As we navigate, you know, those other things, I think that's where we'll realize, you know, what it means to have things accessible. We parked in another business in a handicap space, and a ramp comes out to the side of our van for me able to get out and to get in, and somebody else parked really close in the next space, making it incredibly challenging to get in. So I don't fault anyone for that. I think there's probably not an understanding, but those are the additional challenges that we're going to face and have to figure out as well. Those are just small things that we'll learn to deal with, but I'm happy to answer any questions that people have about my injury. I feel like this is an opportunity for me to share more information about spinal cord injuries, you know, what movements I do have.
What movements do you have?
Yeah. So obviously right now you can see I have movement of my head and neck, and I can move my shoulders really well, and I have some feeling going on in my biceps, and that's through a lot of work of you know, the OT and PTs. So that's really where most of my movement is, but I do have sensation in other parts of my body which show that some signals are going from my head through the spine to other parts of my body. So we hold on to those as hope that perhaps maybe I'll get back some of the function in those areas of my body. That's the hope that we keep having, you know.
Is that an improvement where you're feeling the sensations in other parts that wasn't happening, say, a month ago?
Yes. So when we first arrived at Spalding, they did an assessment of what I could feel and what I couldn't feel. They do things like they use a Q-tip through like behind my ear or on my arms, and they're asking whether or not I feel those and whether or not it's the same sensation as I felt on my face, which is where I do have sensation, and whatnot. And then they would do little pinpricks,
right? And
they would try to figure that out too. So that was they did that in the first day that I arrived at Spalding, and then on the last day, or one of the last days we were leaving, they did that same evaluation, and I showed really nice improvement. So we were pleased with that. You know, that was a good way to sort of leave Spalding on a good note. And we'll be returning there for outpatient, for OT and and PT at least a couple of times a week. While the commute in and out will continue to be a challenge for us, we just felt that we have a great connection with them, and they've a great facility, and we'll continue doing that for at least a year, and then we'll reevaluate whether or not there's other places that we can go.
When I mentioned to Kevin how both students and parents alike spoke so positively about his role as principal at the Robinson Elementary School, how he greeted the children as they arrived at the school every day, how he knew them all by name, he had this to say.
I appreciate hearing that. What I don't tell students often, but I've also shared with parents, is that I really didn't like school as a child, and I struggled quite a bit. So my goal as an educator has always been to make sure that I do as much as I possibly can for kids to enjoy school. When I was a teacher, I would do silly things so that kids wanted to come to school, because that's a big thing, but also to enjoy learning as much as they could. And as a principal, I strive to do the same thing. So I always say that one of the things that's most important to me is getting to know my students and know my families. And I love our small knit community because that allows me to do that at a greater level. So to me, it's a huge compliment when I hear people say those types of things, that the kids love me, or that they are excited to come to school, or that they have a compliment for me. I want to demystify the notion that you shouldn't ever go to the principal's office, because I still firmly believe that when kids come to my office because they've made a poor choice, that's my opportunity to educate them and provide them with strategies. And look, we don't always learn those things on the first try, right? It takes a while. So that's always been a goal of mine as an administrator, so I appreciate that. And I think you asked, if there was anything else that I wanted to share. And I suppose that one of the strong reasons that I wanted to do this interview was to be able to just have an opportunity to thank the community. Allie and I would love to write 3,000 thank you notes, but with everything else that we're doing, I don't know that that's really possible for us to do. So I think, first I just really want to thank the community for supporting our family. There have been so many things that have happened behind the scenes that we don't even still know about, but have been taken care of for us and taken it off our plates. You have no idea how much that means to us, so that we could focus on, getting better and healing, especially early on. And I just can't say enough how overwhelmed we are with the generosity. We've shed a lot of tears every time we hear about something that somebody else has done. I could probably spend an hour giving you stories that I know of, and I know there's a million more to tell, but just the generosity of time and donations has greatly been appreciated. We look very forward to being able to repay this in some way to our community. And once I'm better, I think we'll start to do that.
To help defray the rising medical costs, including therapy and aids, as well as to help with the LaCoste mortgage, make your checks payable to Kevin LaCoste and mail to Nancy Cook, P.O. Box 869, Westford, Massachusetts, 01886. And be sure to stay tuned to WestfordCAT as we follow up with Kevin and Allie to see how the family is doing in the future. For WestfordCAT, I'm Patty Stalker.